Hello everyone, this is Himanshu Chandra from Untitled IT Solutions. Today I am here with a demo lecture for Selenium. The topic we are going to cover is Selenium Xpaths. Let's look at the objectives of the video lecture. What we'll do is understand what Xpaths are. I'll show you how to write stable Xpath locators by yourself without using an external tool. And we'll make sure these external tools, the Xpaths which are given by them, are not used by us because they are not really stable. For those who do not know what Selenium is, I'll just give an overview. Just Google for Selenium Ide and you'll get the link for download Selenium Ide. Those who already know what Xpaths are or what Selenium is, I would advise them to please skip a few minutes and go on to the portion where I directly start explaining Xpaths. So Selenium basically is an automation tool. What it does is automates what the manual testing guys do. Just suppose what you do is open a login window, write your username and password and click on a login button. You can ask Selenium to do the same. One limitation of Selenium, however, is that it works only and only on web browsers. If you have a desktop application, Selenium won't be able to automate that. So, how do you tell Selenium, or for that matter any automation tool, what to do on a screen? If I am a fellow tester, you could very easily tell me, write your username in the first input box that comes up. In the second input box, write your password. And in the button that is just below that, where it's written login, go ahead and click on it. To Selenium, it might not be that easy. You can say what is to be done and on which object on the screen, but it has to be told in a particular syntax. You should know what that syntax is. To do that, you will describe each and every object on the screen. You will say, can you find that input box which is the first input box on the screen? Go ahead and write the username on that one. The way of writing this so that Selenium understands is the Xpath syntax. You give the Xpath locators, and once you write that description of the object and pass it on to Selenium, Selenium is able to understand which object are you talking about. And then you can click on it, you can write text on it and do whatever you want to. So let's start and download the Selenium IDE. We'll use this to check the Xpaths which we have written are correct or not. Please note that at Untitled IT Solutions, what we teach is Selenium WebDriver. That is the most widely used form of Selenium and is used in larger projects in all the companies. Selenium IDE is mainly used for unit testing by developers themselves, and it's much easier to customize Selenium WebDriver because you have to write Eclipse or Java code there. But all of that later. For now, let's only download Selenium IDE. On the page that you see in front of you, you can see that the latest released version of Selenium is 2.8.0. This keeps on changing as the new versions come into the market. But whatever the current version is, just click on it to start downloading it. Once you click, it will prompt you for allowing to install the add-in, then it will install the add-in. It might ask you to restart Firefox. Please do all of that. Once that is done, we'll see where Selenium goes. Here it asks for restart now. Let it restart. Once this is installed, you will see a Selenium icon on the top right hand corner of the Firefox window. You can click on it to launch Selenium. When Selenium opens, it by default opens in a recording mode. So whatever you do is recorded by Selenium Ide. If I click on a link, it will record it. For the time being, what we're going to do is stop that recording. We do not want to do that. Another way to launch Selenium Ide is pressing Ctrl Alt S. So I'll press the key combination now, stop the recording, and then close Selenium. So Control plus Alt plus S is the shortcut to open Selenium. So what we'll do now is create a simple HTML page ourselves and try to identify objects inside that HTML page. I'm using Notepad++ for this, a simple text editor, not the default Notepad which is bundled with Windows. The reason for that is it just seems better to write here in Notepad++. It gives you a couple of features. This is totally open source. You can download it over the net if you want to. To download, simply Google for Notepad++. You'll get the first link. Go into the download section and download the Windows one. That is if you're using Windows. I already have it installed on my system, so I'm not going to do it once again. For HTML pages, always have an HTML tag. To open a tag, you simply write the name inside less than and greater than symbols. So in this case, the first line is HTML. To close the tag, all you have to do is write that once again. But this time, put a / just before that word. So HTML is closed by /HTML and a body tag is closed by a /body. So in this case, what you can see is I opened the HTML tag, put a body inside it, close that, and then close the HTML tag. What this means is the body tag is the child of the HTML tag. It is inside it. HTML tag is the parent of the body tag. So now let's write something inside that body tag. I'll write hello. I'll save this. I'll save this as a HTML file. You can give whatever name you want to. Just make sure the extension is .html and save it. Once that is done, page1.html, I'll double click it to open it in Mozilla Firefox. So you can see whatever we wrote is present on the web page. A simple hello. That is how HTML pages work. One reason why I like using Notepad++ is because it lets me show those collapsible and expandable buttons in the left. See, I didn't do anything. I just wrote the code body and /body. This is generated by Notepad++ to show me that where the extent of that tag is. So if I'm not very sure whether body tag is inside HTML tag, I can click on the HTML tag, collapse it, and see that, oh, I cannot see the body tag too. It must be inside it. So let's go to the web page. We'll right click on the hello and inspect element. Something will appear at the bottom of the page, the document inspector. Whatever we had written, you will be able to see it here. You can collapse and expand the elements here just to make sure what lies under what. Some extra attributes or properties have been added by Firefox. Just ignore them for the time being. Just concentrate on the HTML tag, the body tag, and the text which lies there. Let's open Selenium Ide. Stop the recording. Click on the first row below command, target, and value. If you do not do that, the select and find buttons are not enabled, they are disabled. Go to the target window, the target label, and write something there. Click on find. What I have written here is //HTML/body. The reason for that is, what is the hierarchy of our document? It's HTML, then body, isn't it? So let's start with a basic syntax here. Double slash means to find something on a page or under a tag. So when I am saying double slash HTML, what Selenium understands is, I am asking it to find the HTML tag on the whole page. Followed by that, I have written single slash and then body. What I am trying to tell Selenium is, the body tag is the direct child of HTML tag. That is why there is a single slash. Single slash means direct child. So, slash slash HTML slash body would mean find the HTML tag, and once that is found, find the body tag which is just inside HTML. If you see the structure of the web page, that is how it is designed. Clicking on find after I have written the Xpath highlights everything in yellow on the screen. Now let's write something else inside the web page. I'll go to the Notepad++ screen again and write some extra tags, div this time. Another tag span and write by there. I'll save this. Once this is saved, I'll go back to the browser and refresh the page. Here, now you can see hello and bye. If you see the DOM structure, the inspector at the bottom of the window, you will find div inside which there is a hello text and a span inside which there is a bye text. Let's click on the second row of Selenium Ide once it comes up after pressing Ctrl-Alt-S and write this. See, we are able to find the div tag because div is inside the body tag. Similarly, span is inside the body tag, so I can write HTML body span. Just to make sure, have another look at the structure. If I collapse body, I cannot see div and span. That means it was inside the body tag. The div tag started and it was closed by the slash div tag. After that, the span tag started and it was closed by the slash span tag. However, the body tag was started and it was closed only after the div and the span tags were closed. That makes the body tag the parent of both the div and the span tag. Now let's try something else. See what I am trying to write here. Double slash span and click on find. It still highlights it. Why is that? The reason for that is double slash finds something, as we just discussed, while a single slash means the direct child. When I say double slash span, what Selenium tries to do is find the span tag on the page. Now, in our structure, there is only one span tag. So it finds that and highlights that. Even if there had been more than one span tags, Selenium by default picks up the first instance of whatever tag it encounters. It tried to find the span tag. It found it inside the body tag. It doesn't matter where it found it just found it on the page and it highlighted it. This was a relative XPath. The first case where we wrote everything from the starting HTML was an absolute XPath. This is relative. Now I'm writing a couple of XPaths based on our understanding so far. Double slash body. This will find the body tag on the page. I could write find the body tag and then find the span tag which is the child of that body tag. So a single slash after that, or the div tag after that. Just have a look. I'll continue writing a couple of other examples. /div. This finds the div tag on the page. Similarly, I can find the HTML tag and then say find the div tag or the span tag inside the HTML tag. As you can see here, the div tag is not directly inside HTML, it is inside body. But I can say find the HTML tag and then find the div tag inside that. It can skip levels. I can find the child of the child of the child of the child by using a double slash. Selenium is trying to find inside the HTML tag one div tag. And it is able to find, as you can see in the structure, the div tag is inside the HTML tag. The HTML tag is the grandfather, so to say. And so this works. I'll now change the HTML code, add another div and say Tata. I'll save this and then refresh the web page. And here, once I refresh it, I find that there is Tata on the page. I go to the Selenium Ide, click on a new row, and then do /div. Selenium by default identifies the first div. If I want the second div, I can write the index here inside square brackets. Div 1 means the first one, div 2 means the second one. 1 is automatically assumed by Selenium. Even if I do not write that, that means 1. If I say //div, that means div 1. However, if I want to have the second index, I have to write /div2. Now, using index is not something which is really recommended. The reason for that is the order of the divs or the number of divs or the number of the elements might change tomorrow. Try to think of this from a practical perspective. You're trying to select or highlight a div which has text as hello or text as Tata. What you can do is write /div, open the square brackets, but instead of writing the index this time, write the text property is equal to Tata. This is how you write this. Text bracket open bracket close is equal to within single quotes Tata. Similarly, you can write for hello. Div text parenthesis is equal to hello. You can do this for the span also. This is much more stable. Now, as long as the text is the same, it does matter what order it is in. Even if the last div goes to the first place, does not matter. Now, let's go back to the code and add some extra attributes or properties to each of the elements. Something like ID, name, and class. You can have whatever number of properties you want with each element, with each tag. These three seem to be the most famous ones or the most often used ones: the ID, the name, and the class. It does matter what property is there. You can use whatever property is present there. ID is normally unique on that page. Name and class need not be unique. If a tag has an ID, that ID won't be seen for any other tag on that page. So if you have an ID property, be very sure that will be unique. So as you can see here, the name property, the name value has been used more than once for the first and the last div. The class is the same for the div and the span. They need not be unique. The ID, however, is unique. So let's go to the page, refresh that, and you will find that in the inspector, whatever changes you made are visible. Open the Selenium Ide window, click on a new row, go to target, and type this. /div @ id is equal to id1. What we're doing here is giving the tag name, the property name, and the property value. The syntax to be followed is /tag name, open the square bracket, write @, then give the property name, in this case it was id, equal to whatever value that property has. So property value within single quotes. Close the square bracket. This is the syntax we followed just in the above line. The ID property we could see in the inspector was ID1. So we wrote @ID is equal to ID1. Similarly, you can use different properties too. For span, let's write the same thing. However, instead of ID, we'll use the class property. The class property is class1, so we can write @class is equal to class1 within single quotes, and it will identify. We can prepare a combination of multiple properties. Just suppose I want to say identify the div which has a class property is equal to something and a name property is equal to something. I can write that in this way. Write the first property, then and write the second property. Just make sure each property pairs are in parentheses. So /div square bracket open, simple bracket open, @class is equal to something, simple bracket close, and then the same process. In fact, the previous XPath which we wrote, /div text equal to something, we can write star instead of div. Star means find any tag which has text is equal to label, text equal to Tata. So here we could do the same thing. If you had written /star and rest of the things same, it would have worked. Let's see here. We have two objects which have the same class. What happens if you write star? Selenium picks up the first object which has the class as class 1. What if we wanted the second one? Or how to give a unique combination? We can write /star. Star means find any tag which has the following properties, which we are specifying inside a square bracket. Inside the square bracket, we give two properties, the class and the name. The combination of both is unique, and hence Selenium is able to identify that. Now let's do one thing. I'll go into the code, copy paste the first line at the end of the code. Change the ID, that needs to be unique. Change the name. I'll save it, and now we'll refresh the page. So an extra hello comes at the bottom of the page. Let's write an XPath here now. /* find any label, any tag name with the following properties. The property I am going to specify is text is equal to hello. If I give the index after that, it will find the second tag name, the second tag which has text equal to hello. Once again, I can write multiple properties here. Please note that when you are giving the name of a property, you have to precede it with a @ symbol. However, only and only in cases of text, @ is not required. You need to write text, bracket open, bracket close equal to something. For other properties, you have to write it @ something, @id, @class, @name. Because text is something which goes after the tags. The properties, rest of the properties or attributes are inside the tags. So we have a new web page in front of us. It has username, password, confirm password, notes, etc. fields in it and various input boxes. Let's inspect element by right clicking on it. You can go through the structure here and you will find that inside the body tag we have a span tag which contains the label username. We close the span tag and then there is an input tag. This is the format followed almost throughout the web page. Span input, span input, span input. The span always contains the label which you are able to see, and after that is the input. There are two types of input boxes, text and password. You can see input type is equal to text, input type is equal to password in the code, in the inspector below. The only difference is in the text ones, if you type something it is visible. In the password ones, if you type something, it is displayed as a password. You are not able to see the letters. And then at the last there is a detailed comments label which has 4 text boxes, input boxes side by side. Let's reload the page so that everything is clear. Let's try to highlight the input box which is after the username. This is a very practical scenario where you are asked to type something in an input box and you have just a label just to the left of it, a username, a password, something like that. This is a similar page. If you inspect that, you will find that the input box is just after the username label, the span which has username. So now we will learn about axes. We learned about absolute XPaths, we learned about relative XPaths. There is something known as axes. It has various inbuilt functions which you can use in an XPath to make your life easier. In this demo video, since we have limited time, I'll explain 3 axes which are very important. More often than not, these 3 axes enable you to write any XPath: preceding sibling, following sibling, and ancestor. If you know how to use these 3 ones, very rarely would you need to use any others. Let's try to highlight the username edit box, input box, using these axes. After opening the Selenium Ide and clicking on a new row, let's try to write this. Okay, so the unique thing here is I have a span, I have a label which has text as username. Let's write that first. Find a span, which means /span, which has a property text is equal to username. Selenium is able to easily highlight that. The input box, however, is a sibling of this span. Sibling means either a brother or a sister. Both are children of the body tag. Once the span tag closes, immediately after that is the input tag. So I could say after that find, which means double slash, a following sibling, double colon, 2 times colon. What do we want to find? I want to find an input tag. And I want to find the first input tag. This highlights that. What we are saying is, find the span with a particular property, which in this case is text username. Then once that is found, inside that or after that, find a following sibling of type input. And I want to find the first one. As I said, using index is not really recommended if you can avoid that. So you are saying find an input which has type is equal to text. Then it finds the first input with type equal to text, because one index is implied by Selenium. Notice the special syntax here. Following sibling is followed by colon and again colon. And then the tag name you want to find. And then you can give the index or a property. All you need to remember is access like following sibling, preceding sibling and ancestor need to be followed by 2 colons and need to be preceded by a double slash, not a single slash. Now let's take a look at another scenario. I want to click or highlight the third node's input box. How will I do that? Obviously, the first step is I'll right click on it and inspect element. Now, one thing which you should make a habit is whenever you are inspecting an element, don't just concentrate on that one. Try looking around it. In this case, the third input box has no special property. If you just look at it, what you will think is I have to access it through index. But that's not the correct thing. Take a look at the nodes label just above it, inside the span one. It has an ID. Use that ID because IDs are unique. You can write a span which has a text is equal to nodes. If you leave it at that, it will highlight the first one. If you give the index, it will highlight the third one. Then you can say following sibling input, and that will work fine, although that's not good programming practice. What you could do is not use the index. Use a property instead. ID property is present in the inspector. Use that. And this will work. This is much better now. You're trying to highlight the text box, the input box, which is just after the nodes label with a particular ID. You are not giving the index now. As long as the label and the input box are together and the label has a ID, your Xpath will not break. Let's take a look at another scenario here. That will be the last one on this web page. I want to click on the second input box in the detailed comments. Inspecting it, and I am trying to see some unique property here. What I can see is input class is equal to some class. Can you see that? I'll try to make use of that. Let's see if that is going to work in our favor. Let's open Selenium Ide and see what is to be written here. Click on a new row, go to the target label, target input box. I'll write input class is equal to some class. That is a property I can see. And I'll try to find it. Now, what I've done here is, I wanted to use that class is equal to some class and find the input box just before that. That would have given me the second input box. But I tried to write this and then I realized there is another input box with a class is equal to some class, and Selenium is recognizing that one. If you see the last notes box, that also has a class as some class. Classes are not unique, that can be shared across various elements. What is unique here is, all this is inside the detailed comments one. There is a span, detailed comments, and only after that these input boxes are present. What I can write is, find the span which text is equal to detailed comments. Then find the following sibling of it, which is of tag type input and class is equal to some class. Once that is found, find a preceding sibling of input type, just the immediate preceding one, and then it will find the input box, the second input box inside the detailed comments one. So I'll repeat once again. What I tried to do was highlight the second input box. After inspecting the structure of the web page, I found that the third input box has class is equal to some class. So I thought, if I can highlight the third one, then I can say from the third one do a preceding sibling, which means the sibling before it, and highlight that. That did not work because there was a notes input box which also had the class is equal to some class. Then I realized I need to say that these input boxes are in the detailed comments section. So I wrote the XPath for span which has text is equal to detailed comments, then the following sibling which is input type and class is equal to some class, and then the preceding sibling of it. You do realize this is very lengthy, and it is, but this is stable. If you use any tool, this is not the XPath which will be generated. What it will try to do is give you an index. Those indices are never stable. However, if you write it in this way, more often than not, your script will endure the test of time in spite of the fact that the GUI is changing. So now let's take a look at another web page. It's a simpler one in looks. It has just two input boxes. It has a label at the top of it, Himanshu, and then a rating label and then an input box. Similarly, then there is Chandra. There is a rating label and then there is an input box. You can see the structure in the inspector. There is a body, inside that there is a span, and then it has two children, two spans. First span is for the Himanshu rating, the second span is for the Chandra rating. You can expand it and see how it looks. These web pages, the source code for this HTML page, you can find all of it on the Adhyayan site in the resources section. I'll give the link for it at the end of the tutorial. So for the time being, you can see in the video how it looks. Each child span has a div inside it and a span inside it. The div again has a span inside it where the name is given Himanshu, which is inside a div. It has a sibling span inside this span. You will find the word rating and the input box. Look at the hierarchy very carefully. If you cannot understand the hierarchy, it will be very difficult to write the XPath. If I write this input at the rate of type is equal to text, it will highlight the first input box. Very simple. The problem arises if I want to highlight the second input box, the one where I have to give the rating for Chandra. I could give the index, but as I said, you should not be using index in this case. What if another name comes in between Himanshu and Chandra? Then the index will change from 2 to 3. What is stable here? The stable thing here is the Chandra text. If I tell you, give the rating for the Chandra guy, it's much easier. If you write the XPath based on the text Chandra, then that will not break even if the GUI changes. So let's see how to do that. Ideally, what we would want is highlight or navigate to the element which is stable, which we can easily recognize, which will be the defining factor of our XPath. Here, Chandra is something which we can say is stable. Why? Because how will be the requirement be given to us? The requirement will be give rating for Chandra. The name will be given and we are expected to write something in the input box just to the right of it. So, Chandra can be identified very easily if it is unique, which in this case it is. It is a span which has a text equal to Chandra. Then we use double slash. We are trying to find ancestor. Like following sibling and preceding sibling, there is the word ancestor. Then colon div 1. Ancestor means find my parent or parent's parent or parent's parent's parent. What type of parent are you trying to find? Which ancestor are you trying to find? The div ancestor. So I have written ancestor colon div 1. The first div which you encounter above me, which is my ancestor, navigate to that. Which in this case, if you see, there is a div just above span. When you say ancestor double colon div 1, it tries to search for the div just above it. The first div just above it. That div should be its parent or grandparent or something like that. Once that is found, I can see that this div has a sibling, span. So I am saying double slash following sibling span 1. Find my following sibling, the first span which you encounter. Once you reach that span, you have a child there inside that span. That is the input tag. That is the input box we were searching for. So I wrote /input. This is the way normally you navigate through Xpaths for a DOM, for a web page. I can understand the access part, the ancestor, the preceding, the following sibling part might not be very intuitive and easy to grasp in the first go, and it will need a lot of practice from your side. But once you get the hang of it and you are very clear about the concept, how it is applied, then a major part of your automation work is done. Most of the automation scripts break because the object recognition, the XPaths are not written properly, and you have to spend a lot of time in maintenance. If that is done properly, your scripts are really robust. Try practicing these in your own time. If you have any doubts, please feel free to mail me or call me up. Contact details will be given at the end of the video. Please have a look. Do get in touch. You can download the resources from these links, and you can mail me too if you have any concerns, any doubts, or you want to know the upcoming batches, the schedules, etc. The video tutorial is uploaded here, of course. Hope you liked the demo video.